I'm back. Did you miss me? You missed me. Well, hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm the Associate Broker Residential Sales Manager at ProStar Realty. This is an Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 245. I'm back. So, guys are watching the last video. You noticed that I was on vacation. I went to the great state of Oregon to visit the coast, the land where my heart lies, even though it smells like pot right now, and faint whiff of tear gas in Portland in the Hillsdale area when we were in there. So, didn't see any naked bike riders. Not disappointed because from what I saw on X, do you guys remember when Viagra first came out and they were saying if you're experiencing an erection that lasts for more than 4 hours, please contact emergency services? Yeah, they found the cure for that. It's Portland naked bike riders. Wow. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about that. It looked like in the old days when you're getting off the airplane and they're unloading the luggage, all right, off the plane, and it was all leather. Wet, wrinkly leather. Ugh. Ugh. Anyways, but I digress. I usually do. So, hope you guys are having a good week. Like I said, I'm back from the holidays, and I did something really weird. Totally forgot it was Wednesday when I was there, and didn't log in the numbers really quick. Then I was having a hard time for some reason, Armless and everything, all my different passwords get saved to my different things, and it tries to autofill in a password on my iPad, and it's an older iteration, and I've had to change it for reasons, and unfortunately I didn't have to do that much real estate. I did have to do real estate because, clients come up out of the woodwork. It's so cool when they do that, Don't talk to you for 3 months, and then you sit there and you try to get away, and next thing you know, they're just pop. It's like the universe starting to distress. Quick, hit them with something. So that's what's been going on with that. So I get back, start putting out fires. Wife pulls up sick day 2. First day back, she starts getting she texts me, I got a sore throat. By the end of the day, she's lost her voice. So she's been home sick, sleeping on the couch to try not to get me sick, which I appreciate. That and because when we're not sharing a bed and the cat's out there in the living room with her, I get to sleep. I've gotten more sleep, except I'm getting home late. I don't think I've been home before midnight for the last 3 days. And it's not that I'm out there completely partying, alley catting around or anything like that. It's just between post meetings and catching up on karaoke and everything. I'm just beat down, tired. So, but here I am, excited. Did want to touch on a couple things. The Compass merger, and they're moving into really trying to take over the luxury real estate model, is having downstream impacts on us, the plebes of the real estate world. We got a new form, okay, and I'm really miffed because I had to discover this new form in the wild while I was teaching an agent how to fill out the listing agreement, and then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, wait a minute, this is different. Some of us can read a document and recognize when there's been a change to the document because all of a sudden we see something new, and we recognize that we're seeing something new. I'm like, whoa, what's this new paragraph about? And I read the new paragraph, and then on the fly, we look up the document here's a brand new formal document that's required in a listing. And this is the first time I'm hearing about it. Now, we have a process, all right? The state has a process, and the process is when AAR, Arizona Association of Realtors, puts out a new form, all the brokers are notified that there's a new form out there so those brokers can push that information down to their agents. Now, I'm an associate broker, but I'm not the designated broker, all right? So I don't get that email. But that email did not get pushed across. All right, so playing catch up on that, which means we have to go review our files. Okay, and we review the files and realize, hey, we got new listings that are performing in a way that mandates that new document, but they don't have the new document, which tells me my agents aren't reading the forms they're filling out and having clients sign. See what happens when I go on vacation? This is why I don't go on vacation. So anyway, so we're catching up on that, but it's a constant process. I mean, the docs change monthly. It behooves you as a professional who wants to make real estate your career to keep up on these things. And I'm constantly frustrated by the gatekeeping based on this old, archaic, guild form of real estate that we have, where that information does not get passed down to the individual agents. It should. And if it is getting passed down somewhere, I need to change my systems up, because apparently I'm not reading emails I'm supposed to be reading. I get a lot of emails, okay, but I should be flagging out all the ones that say, that's note to self. Hold on for a second. Yeah, what you guys are seeing is product improvement on the fly. Flag AR emails. Okay, so something else to do today. Anyways, back to reality. So since I was on vacation, I did not get last week's numbers logged in. Since I did not get them logged in, when I do the numbers, you're actually going to see a 2-week delta as opposed to just every other week. And that's actually really sort of interesting what's going on over there. Let's take a look at this. Hold on. I know I'm the only one who's interested in these things, but all right. We are actives this week, and now the numbers for October 15th, 2025. Actives this week are 25,090, up 774 from 2 weeks ago. Our new listings are 2,179, down 6 from 2 weeks ago. Contracts are at 2,063, down 26, and our closings were 1,222. Coming soon to an MLS near you is 588 new listings. All right, now that I got that out of the way, 25. I've been saying this for years. 25 is the number. 25,000 is where we should be. And if you look down there at 25,090, that gives us a Cromford Report sales index, or for sellers, of 100.9. Okay, so where we should be having 100 houses for sale, we actually have 101. That's a supply surplus, right? But it's the demand side. Demand side is just sitting at 80, which means we have 4 out of 5 buyers out there. That's giving us a Cromford Report number of 79.3. All right, got the math and everything, guys? And this is, so we have the inventory. Don't let I'm still seeing marketing put out by other brokerages and other people in the industry go, with our low inventory. This is not low. This is right. This is where we should be. For our population base and the amount of people that we have out there, this is how many houses should be for sale. Right? I maybe count on my one hand how many times I've seen. In fact, I can't remember how last time I saw a run like this where we have normal housing supply. So what we don't have is demand, but we have noticed the demand is starting to creep up, right, as the interest rates keep dropping down. But we're also seeing first-time home buyers get pushed farther and farther back. It used to be age 32 was the average age for a first-time home buyer. Now it's like 34, 35, right? And no, it's not because the kids aren't launching and getting out of the basement or anything like that. That was the millennials, all right? That was the first tranche of millennials. They're actually starting to break millennials up into 2 different groups based on their personality habits, right? But, they're having... those first-time home buyers are not, stepping into the market. Why? Because we're still dealing, and I don't want to say inflated, okay, but we're still dealing with the post-COVID sales prices. Right? And what's interesting is over the weekend and while I was gone, I saw 2 separate bidding wars for properties in the 700 range. 2 different houses, both go the first weekend, multiple offers, good agents, playing the buyers off of each other. Which suck if you're the buyer's agent, right? But it's great if you're the listing agent. Right? Saw that happen twice. Okay, at that price point. I want to bring that up because we have these numbers right here, and you see me read this off to you all the time. Fountain Hills, Paradise Valley, and Scottsdale. And Chandler and Gilbert and Avondale barely. Okay, and Cave Creek just barely. Okay, these are all considered sellers markets right now. These are also the rich neighborhoods. The article I was reading on Cromford Report said that Scottsdale, by dollar volume, is now the #1 market in Arizona. Right? It beats out Phoenix. It used to be Phoenix because of the population and the size of a pure dollar amount of houses sold that week, that month, that year. Phoenix used to be the king bee. Now it's Scottsdale. All right? Scottsdale based because they have less houses, but they're more expensive. All right? So Scottsdale is now the #1 real estate market in Arizona. If you're just looking at dollar volume. If you're looking at housing volume, it's still going to be Phoenix. Right? But it's interesting. Fountain Hills and Paradise Valley. Look what's going on up there. Okay, Fountain Hills is at 0. Very little change, but they actually moved a little bit more to the seller side at 153.5. Right? Paradise Valley, though, has been dropping. In last week's numbers that I reviewed, but I didn't click out, Paradise Valley dropped 21% from the previous month. And now you've seen that sort of recover, so now it's only -12. Interesting. Right? What that would look to you in a chart, okay, is this. Okay, and then this drop is slowly starting to level out a little bit more. Okay, still going down, but not as fast. Okay, maybe they're moving into a glide slope. Maybe they could start looking for the runway or a nice golf course to try to land that plane. But all right, so that's interesting information. Now remember, these people are also not driven by wages. They're driven by how the stock market's performing. All right, so let's keep an eye on those. But the rest of the areas that we got Mesa, Phoenix, Glendale, and Tempe are our balanced markets, and then we get into the buyers markets. All right. Peoria, Goodwear, Santan Valley, Surprise, Queen Creek, Buckeye, and Maricopa. New player on the board, Santan Valley. Cromford Report has decided to split off Queen Creek and Santan Valley into 2 separate municipalities to reflect more of reality. So instead of Queen Creek having this one big bundled one, you're going to see both of those together. And you can now see that Santan Valley, all right, is slightly better condition, market-wise for sellers, all right, than Queen Creek. And that's wraps up the one thing I really wanted to talk about, all right? Everybody always says it's a good market or it's a bad market, all right? The question you need to ask is good for who or bad for who, all right? The market was really bad for home buyers back in 2021 when we were still dealing with the after effects of the bid, all right? It was great to be a seller back then. It was great to be a seller. I thought 2014 was a really bad year to be a real estate agent. All right. It was the last true balanced year that we ever had. And that was bad year to be a real estate agent from my perspective. Because I had just come off of the 2012, 2013, where there was a little buying frenzy when everybody was picking up all the broken pieces off after the crash, right? So remember, you got your own personal perspective, and then when you look at the bigger picture, it's going to be for who, right? I like seeing 100 on supply, right? I would love to live in a perfectly balanced market. I mean, we're talking perfectly balanced, right? Cromford Report numbers of 100, maybe a little bit of variation between the cities. I mean, just experience it. With my current, my current eyes and the way I see things now, that would be really, really fascinating, observation. It'd allow me to set my baseline. Other interesting thing about Oregon, I went through the entire state, could not find one decent cup of coffee. I have no idea what it was. Everywhere I went, the coffee just sucked. This is Pete's Major Richardson's blend or something like that, and I'm not a fan of this. So the eternal quest for a good cup of coffee continues. And I've never really been that much of a coffee person. For me, it's just I like it hot, but I'll drink it cold. And actually, I don't like it hot. I will pour a cup of coffee, sit there on the counter for 15 minutes before I start drinking, so I'll drop down in temperature a bit. But I don't know why I'm not turning into a coffee snob, but I'm no longer, life's too short to drink bad coffee. All right, this is pretty much where I'm getting to. So, but it's interesting because Oregon has such this huge reputation. Oh, they have the greatest coffee. No, they don't. It's branding. Right. And that wraps up my final little bit. All right. We'll come back to the mastermind class. Right. Wasn't here last Wednesdays. So I got to, host the next one and try to undo some of the damage that had happened from the week before. And all I'm going to say is that if you're going to take a shot at the king, don't miss. Ooh, you missed. So, and trying to work on everybody's individual personal brands, right? Because that's the only thing that's going to separate you from the other 65,000 real estates out there, right? What is your strengths and what is your weaknesses? Remember, I did a video a while ago about superpowers, way, way long ago. What's your superpower as a buyer? What's your superpower as a seller? Right? And how to identify that? Well, it goes trouble for real estate agents. And it's the same thing for you. If you're in any kind of industry or profession where you're up against other people, sometimes you're competing for the same job, the same promotion, the same client, whatever it is, find out what makes you you. Right? Discover what your strengths is, learn how to promote your strengths. Right? And find out what your weaknesses are and learn how to mitigate those. Or at least act like you can mitigate those. Sometimes the best way to play with a weakness is to lampshade it. Lampshading is a term from Hollywood, right? It says there's something really obvious going on, so we're going to put a lampshade on it and draw attention to it. All right? There's an old joke out there. It's like, what do you think your greatest weakness as an employee? Well, I think my greatest weakness as an employee is my brutal honesty. So, anyways. That pretty much wraps everything up. Last thing, I'm going to have a lunch date with a lovely lady by the name of Elaine Price. She used to run the Irish Cultural Center. I don't know. She wasn't the official president of the Irish Cultural Center, but she's like all great organizations. She was the woman who made it work in the background. Every organization has one of these people, right? So she's now over at the Musical Instrument Museum and probably doing the same thing over there. And she has started a new YouTube channel. And she sent this to me and my wife and a bunch of other people. And I looked at it and I was just very happy with her production quality. I'm like, wow, that looks so much better than me on a microphone and my one fancy light, and doing it all in one take. And so I'm going to meet with lunch, pick her brain on that, and we're going to maybe collaborate. I was hoping, because her house is lovely. She's in one of those old late 40s, early 50s red brick bungalow size houses out there on Missouri in the avenues. And it's just decorated like a little English cottage, right? Because she's a little English lady. Actually, she's an American now. So is her husband. Both immigrated from the People's Republic of the UK to come here. So, but it's just the house. And I was hoping what she was doing is that her video was going to be about how she decorates her house, because we can get some real synergy going on between her two channels. But apparently she's making purses and a whole bunch of other stuff, little crafty things. So I'm going to include her YouTube channel in the show notes below. Support her, please. You like her, click through, subscribe. Right now I would suggest try not to watch her show on your phone, because the font that she uses is very hard to read on a phone screen. Okay, but that's one of the things we're going to discuss. So, what else? Finally, ProStar is starting a book club. And we're starting with Atomic Habits. My current review of Atomic Habits is this. Atomic Habits is an excellent primer for anybody who has never read any book like this ever. If you have some understanding of how these things go, you will recognize a few things. They are calling very simple items, ideas, okay, that have been around for forever. They're making them sound a little bit more complicated, all right, and acting like there's somebody new. The first part of that is they literally describe you Japanese term called kanban. I probably mispronounced that, but all right. But it's the concept of a 1% improvement, gradual improvement every day. Right? It was started by some guy who worked for the Toyota company. Right? This guy is sitting there projecting this whole thing like it's his first idea. All right. So, but if you've never read any of these things, and the other thing is, if you read this stuff and they start talking about these historical experiences, like, well, on this day, Henry Ford did this and that revolutionized. And if you actually know the real story, you see how he's sort of dumbing it down and sort of cherry picking it and glossing over a lot. It's like, well, it didn't go exactly like that. Yeah. William the Conqueror invaded England in 1066 and beat the Saxons. That is correct. And he won the Battle of Hastings. That's correct, because he was awesome. Or was it because Harold took an arrow in the eye? Or was it because of the Saxons had to march the entire freaking length of the freaking England, all right, from the last battle they had just a couple weeks before to meet him at the Battle of Hastings. And so they were all dragged out and tired and stuff like that. So was it really Norman awesomeness, or they were just taking advantage of a previously weakened foe? Saxon pride. I don't even know if I am Saxon, right? But I've always really, William the Bastard, not really, everything history makes him out to be. So, and I take offense to that, especially when people are putting into a self-help book, especially if it's a self-help book that I have to read because I was selected by the book reading committee. And we will shuffle through, because this is what leaders do. There's an old saying, lead, follower, get the hell out of the way. Okay. There's a whole new term called leading from the front, or pacing. Right. Look up Skylar Adams like that. He's got an entire thing on how you pace a crowd. All right. From the top. All right, let's work our circles, everybody out there. Let's walk children and pets around the water. I missed all the really good rain, apparently. Okay. And I hope nobody drove in anything flooded. All right. And you guys have a really, really great weekend. I'll talk to you guys all later.